Question 4. Why suddenly the mind of a spiritual aspirant or sadhaka gets disturbed? Is it because of an extra-sensitive perception of his mind? Answer. The mind of a sadhaka is a very sensitive antenna, more sensitive than an ordinary person. Any inner and external disturbances, because of his close association and attachment with his closest associates, can give the exact signals of their problems that can disturb his mind, being highly sensitive, fragile and pure. This is basically the sense of oneness of the sadhaka with his associates and particularly with his kith and kin. It is a natural and mysterious phenomenon. Sometimes even the shock is felt when undue happening occurs. It is unavoidable because of the linkage of fate with the happenings. It is in fact a prarabdha that is even beyond the best possible efforts of an individual to avoid them. Under these conditions, a sadhaka cannot do anything. He can just pray to the Almighty and prepare himself for the undue gimmicks or happenings of fate. His breath becomes restless, but by self-control and bringing back the tranquil breath, the sadhaka or spiritual aspirant temporarily can come out of the miseries of the shock waves striking his mind. Although the troubles continue for the sadhaka until the conditions become normal, that takes its own time. Beyond that, nothing can be done since all these are closely linked with the psychological attachment. All these disturbing thoughts, because of the highly psychological linkage of the sadhaka with his associates, get stored in the subconscious mind. At times when these disturbing thoughts surface in the conscious mind, the mental peace of the sadhaka is disturbed. All this is closely linked with the negative memories of the subconsciousness. These are beyond the control of even advanced sadhaka to nullify their effects. However, temporarily by Shuniyaka process, breath control and re-establishment of the tranquil breath, the mental peace can be restored by intensive efforts that break the close ties of the conscious mind with that of the subconscious mind temporarily. Conscious mind is always filled with the energy but not with the memories. The memories of the subconscious mind surfaced on the conscious mind, having an abundance of kinetic energy that gets involved easily with the thought process of the memories. This disturbs the self-control that leads to loss of his peace of mind and makes him violent at times if accompanied with the disturbed pattern of breath. Even 2 or 3 of the higher minds can get disturbed because of the suffocation of tranquil breath by the lack of oxygen supplied by the horizontal or physical breath. Even subjective fear disturbs the tranquil breath. Memories of the past events stored in the emotional heart swallow the tranquil breath. This happens sometimes even without the touch and participation of the mind. It is an automatic disturbance if it exceeds the limits of emotions in the heart. Tranquil breath is regenerated as the storm of acute disturbance subsides. However, it may take a long time to get the harmony re-established in the system. The reappearance of tranquil breath is indirectly proportional to the strength of mind. It means that if the mind is stronger, then tranquil breath can be established fast. On the contrary, if reactions of the various actions in mind are more severe, the mind becomes weak and it takes a long duration for the establishment of tranquil breath. This is the situation of psychological malady for an individual. One can be persecuted even because of this malady. He suffers like a most ordinary person out of miserable fear and different types of disturbing doubts in his mind. Consequently, it takes longer to re-establish the tranquil breath that gives him peace. In everybody's life both good and bad happens, and one must be prepared for the worst. Only ego of a person does not want to compromise on any front. Spiritual person is supersensitive and he suffers more on any front. It is because of the fact that he brings himself above Maya, and Maya, the greatest force, cannot tolerate this and always put him in problems or miseries one after the other. Above Maya means as if on the top branch of a tree, and this is likely to have much less stiffness, and with a slight blow of wind, it can easily shake. It is the case with the highly evolved spiritual person, that he has to suffer much more than a common man. It is the way of life for him being supersensitive. A common man lives on a horizontal plane totally merged in Maya, and so Maya does not create much suffering for him. Also, he becomes more insensitive because of the effect of Maya or illusion and just does not get disturbed unless the major issue comes on his way. In general, everybody suffers in life, on whatsoever plane he is. One cannot completely choose his plans, life and ways or means. The invisible force does most of the things for him. Only precaution for the spiritually evolved person is that he must refuse to react under any circumstances. He must maintain silence, since it is both gold and God. Only if he reacts, he has to suffer more internally than a common human being. Spiritual person must always try to keep his subconscious as clear and as right as possible so that stored thoughts must not get surfaced on the conscious plane and disturb him. Subconscious state can only be checked by tranquil breath. Negative thoughts on the conscious plane can be checked and controlled only by yoga sadhana. To disturb somebody, the only technique is to awaken the negative thoughts in his subconscious state by the negative approach of the close associates who must disturb his tranquil breath. In the war of Mahabharat, Karana's tranquil breath was disturbed by Alia, his charioteer, who always talks negatively about Kauravas and praised Pandavas as per the instructions of Lord Krishna. This indirectly disturbed the tranquil breath of Karana, and disturbed or agitated his mind to such an extent so that he could take up the correct decision in the war in favor of Pandavas. Human mind is always conscious, and it can be peaceful under the effect of tranquil breath. Subconscious mind is always subjective, and under the effect of X factor, it can bring the subconscious past memories on the conscious mind and can disturb and deteriorate the tranquil breath, irritating the peaceful mind. The suffering of a person cannot be fully eliminated till then the consciousness is there. In this world neither peace and nor war, and nothing else is permanent. Everything is mutative. All human experiences are a passing phase only. Nothing remains permanent in the mind. Subjective conscious breath pattern, due to its mutative thinking, disturbs mind. It can be controlled only by tangible tranquil breath. One must resurrect tranquil breath as soon as possible if the reactions of conscious mind are very powerful. Conscious mind is full of emotional instincts. Basically, human mind is bhava and it is samsara. We are drowned in maya. Mind needs to be kept in balance by tranquil breath to face the mental disturbances both from inside and outside. If the influence of spirit is more predominant, it will be faster to get established tranquil breath in him. But again his behavior is like an elephant who after taking bath puts all the mud on himself again. Exactly similar is the case with breath that swings between horizontal and tranquil breaths as mind swings between disturbance and peace. The evil spirits and negative thoughts always disturb tranquil breath. It is like a crab that wants to cross and go to the top of the vessel to get free, but other crabs push him down. Similarly, tranquil breath cannot be permanent and regularly is disturbed and put back with the horizontal breath like a crab crossing the boundary, who will again and again forcefully be pushed back by the other crabs in the vessel. Basically, a conscious feeling of attachment cannot be erased, and a man suffers again and again as the attachment will not allow the establishment of tranquil breath. It will be periodically disturbed by the subconscious feelings. The approach is to unburden the disturbed feelings and not to invite the memories from the subconscious state of the causes for these disturbed feelings on the conscious plane. To live in the present without being in touch with the past and future is the best way to be away from these miseries. In other words, be sakshi or vigilant or observer of the mental thoughts appearing in the mind, which will get subsided by its own. Finally, this will lead to a thoughtless state and tranquility of the mind gets established. This is only possible by maintaining the tranquil breath as long as possible. Furthermore, sadhaka must be an introvert to be in the soul light to have total mental peace. A common man can bear the load of disturbed feelings much easier being more insensitive than a spiritually evolved highly sensitive person can. He is easily reconciled to being on a horizontal plane than an intellectually spiritually evolved person. Basic intellect and spiritual evolution make a person more sensitive, emotional and more concerned for others. He becomes a helpless spectator of all the circumstances. He wants to follow the path of least resistance in the horizontal activities and tries to find conveniences so that he could direct his energy for vertical travel. But a common man living in a horizontal plane takes that whatever is happening is normal in every walk of life, since he is highly insensitive and can fight the issues and resolve them boldly by right or wrong means, and he does not need to conserve his energy to follow the vertical path. So, in short, a sadhaka gets disturbed very easily for any problem of the horizontal plane, but a common man takes every problem as the tide to ride and solve it without getting much disturbed. A sadhaka needs energy for higher cause to take a vertical path, and for a common man no conservation of energy is needed for any other purposes than to be in a horizontal plane, and to deal with the problems of this plane only. However, as sadhaka progresses in his spiritual journey, gradually vairagya or dispassion develops in the core of his heart that makes him very strong in the worldly affairs, and soon he raises much above that of the horizontal plane and the issues of this mundane world. He becomes content and happy in all respects.